Hi there, it's Jan from JB Crafts, and thank you for joining me today. I hope everyone's enjoying their weekend. Today's Saturday, so I have another tutorial involving a concept design card for you. And I've done something a little bit different today. I have been talking about starting Halloween for the month of October, and this is the very first one that I've made, and I have gone down a very different line. To start out this little mini series for this month, I just wanted to I sort of had this idea about using what you have, which is the whole ethos of the channel here. I'm not so, not I don't want people to have to go out and buy what I use. I want you to have a look through your stash, see what you've got, and see if you can create, if that's what you want to do. And I know a lot of people have done that. They've sent me photos of things that they've done with this as an inspiration, or my idea as an inspiration, and then had a look through the stash, which is great. So that's what I actually did myself this time. And I've had this one a little while, and it was bought as a Halloween die. It comes with the bats and the little ghosty, and the one that I didn't use was there's a little flying witch there on a broomstick as well. I didn't use that one on this particular card, but what I wanted to show is that you can use that kind of thing away from Halloween. So it's, is it Halloween? I've got for a birthday sentiment on here. I know lots of people have birthdays on and around Halloween, so yeah, there's still that to cater for. But why not incorporate some of those products that we tend to think more about being done in blacks and purples and greens and that kind of thing? So yeah, we went for this. Rather than being a spooky house, it's gone more of a kind of a fairy tale idea behind it. And I've used some bits and pieces from my stash. I've mixed and matched different bits. I've just pulled out things that I thought I needed, and I'll talk you through what I've done as we go along. Now, I've made this today into a stepper card, which is something that I don't have on the channel yet. So we've got that main portion here for the design, which is about 5 3/4 inches square, but with this extra panel, so we've got an extra 2 1/4 inches on the edge here, that's created the stepper. So we've got one fold here, we've got one here, and then the height of the card. And I've got a template for you to show you for this one, and this is a perfect opportunity for me to address the comments about where the score lines go and whether you can see them, because you'll be able to, I'm going to lay the template over the top when I've done the scoring so that you can see exactly where they're going to go. So there's a simple cut line. We have to cut along here to create this opening before we can do the folding, and again, nice and simple. And then inside I've just matted that main square. You could put something else here, or you could put some more pattern paper here, and I've just added a little sentiment there. And I had a couple of the bats left over. I die cut a few of them out of some of my ivory glitter cards. I thought I'll just pop them on the inside, linking it to the outside. Lots of bling again. I've got those little aurora crystals on there just to catch the light, along with some little pink stars, which again, I'll show you all the products as we go through the tutorial. So not as difficult as you think to make. Once you've mastered how this stepper element works, you can make this in any combination. So for example, you could have this portion at the left hand side so that you've got your left hand stepper card. You could actually add another 2/4 inch onto here and have a double stepper with a piece at each side. You could narrow this portion if you'd got something that lent itself to being in a narrower piece. So yeah, lots of different ways of doing it. But the concept behind it, as I say, is once you understand how it works, it is actually quite straightforward. So I'm going to pop that one to one side, and we're going to start off with a little bit of scoring and a bit of cutting. So I've got my cardstock to start with here, and this is a piece of I've been trying to use some of the Centura Pearl up. So this is just a piece of Centura Pearl from Crafter's Companion, and I think it's the Hint of Gold because I've used gold on the card. So that's going to be my piece to start with, and this needs to be 11.5 inches by 8. So I've cut a minimal amount off here. I've literally just cut that little skinny piece off. Ours is 11 3/4 and a fly's eyelash kind of thing. So I've cut a very skinny piece off the length, and I've taken 1/4 inch off that long side to give me 11.5 by 8 inches, and that's what we need to start with. So I'm going to pop it this way, And then I'm going to bring you that template in to sit over the top. And I always cut my templates to the right size. And it's a series of score lines and just one cut line. So I will write on here, actually I've forgotten to write on that the blue line is a cut line and the pink lines are where we're going to score. All right, so I will just do that actually while I think about it. Otherwise, it could get a little bit confusing. So if we put over the pink that we're going to score, and then the blue one, I normally put a little like a little faux pair of scissors on here so that it looks, you know, so that we know that we're cutting this one that's blue. So I'll pop those on. I do normally write those on, I must admit. Okay, and then I'll come back to I've got the details on here for the front mat, and then I'll show you how to work out how to do these. So first thing we're going to do then is we're going to do a little bit of measuring to start off with. I want to pop this cut line in first. All right, so I need to find out whereabouts that is going to sit on my card. So I'm going to get a ruler and a pencil at the ready, and I'm going to use my card. Now, bearing in mind that I want my stepper on this right hand side, okay, which is here. But when I turn my piece of card over, that right hand side's over here. So it's worth remembering that if your card, if it's a piece of plain cardstock, it won't really make any difference. But because I want that lovely pearlescent finish on the front, what will be here when we look at the right side is now over this side. So I'm going to work on this left hand side. And the first thing I want to do is take this measurement here at 2¼ inches, and I want to mark that top and bottom to create this cut line. So I'll leave that in place so that you can see what I'm doing. And all I'm going to do on this side is mark the 2¼ inches along the bottom here. And then I'm going to bring it down and I'm going to do the same at the top. So just line everything up and mark at 2¼ inches. Okay. And that's all I'm going to do for the time being. So this has created that width here. You can see we've got that pencil mark in the width of this column. Bearing in mind that when I flip this over, this will be on this right hand side. Now, the best thing I find for this is a paper trimmer. Now, you know I love my guillotine, and I nearly always use the guillotine for cutting paper and things like that. But in this instance, the paper trimmer comes in handy. Now, if you don't have access to one of these, you can use a craft knife and a ruler with a metal edge on your cutting mat. So you can cut into it with a craft knife. But I actually prefer to do it on here because I can control where that measurement is going to be now. So what I'm going to do is pop my pencil lines. I know that this is my cut track on my paper trimmer here, so I'm going to line up those pencil marks exactly with that cut line. So I've got that little pencil mark that we drew in here on the cut line, and I've done the same at this end so that I know that my piece is nice and straight. And then we're going to cut into this. Now I want to cut, if I bring this back here, I want to cut from 1½ inches, which is this score line that we're going to put in here, up to 7¼ inches. And that's the beauty of having the paper trimmer. So I'll just pop that to one side. So I prefer to come the other way. So I'm going to take my trimmer to the 7¼ inches here. And mine's got a little tiny mark here in the middle that I line up on that 7¼ mark there. And I prefer to work this way against that edge that's flat against the paper trimmer. And I'm going to cut all the way down here to 1½ inches. So I'm going to stop when I get to here. So just a single cut line, and then I am going to line up that little marker on my blade here with the 1½ inches. And that is it. That's as simple as it gets. But what we've now got is that piece here that's going to allow us to do the folding. All right, so that is the only cut line that we need to do. The rest of it is going to be scoring with the scoreboard. So again, I'm going to bring in my scoreboard and my scoring tool. I'm still working on the reverse, and I've got that narrower 2¼ inch panel at the top here. Pop it in the left hand side here, and I want to pop these lines in now. So I'm going to score at 1½, at 3, and at 7¼ just up to that cut line. That's all I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to start here and I'm going to go at 1½, and I can see my cut line here. And if you struggle with that, pop your ruler on the line there. I've just lined it up with my pencil mark and the cut line, and at 1½ inches I am going to score down to that ruler line. Okay, and then I'm going to move on again and score at 3 inches down to the ruler. Okay, and then I'm going to bring it all the way along here and I'm going to score at 7¼ okay, 7¼ so that's going to stop when it hits that cut line. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it over, and then I need to put a line on this bulk of it at this side here. I'm going to go right through the center because half of the 11½ is 5¾ inches, but I'm going to stop when I hit the cut line there. I don't want that to come all the way through, so I've turned it over so that I've got this side against my measurements. I'm going to go for 5¾ here, and I'm just going to score that down to where that cut line is and stop. Okay, I'm also going to reinforce the ones that we made on the other side because these are going to fold. Some of them are going to be mounting folds and some of them are going to be valleys, so I tend to score those on both sides so that we've got that, you know, opportunity to fold either way. So that's my scoring done. Now, for the benefit of those of you that asked about the pencil lines, rather than draw the pencil lines on here, this now is a direct copy of what we've got going on underneath. So I have scored across the centre to that cut line, and then I've scored in from this edge at 1½ inches, 3 inches and 7¼ inches to join that cut line that we made. So that's exactly what's going on underneath here. I've got that 5¾ line, I've got my cut line, and then I scored at 1½, 3 inches and 7¼ okay. So we'll pop that to one side, and I tend to just use, I do find when I use my paper trimmer that it does actually, I don't know what the right word is, it almost sort of changes the edge of the cardstock. So just very gently with the back of my bone folder, I tend to just rub over that piece there just to flatten it down again. I'm also going to take my pencil eraser there, and just while we've got it turned over now, I don't need those 2 little marks on the back, so we'll just erase those. That's fine, and then we can start to fold. Okay, so again, I'll pop these on here so that it makes a little bit more sense with the folds. We need to do what we call a mounting fold at the front here, so that's folding with the score line at the top. The second one is going to be a valley, which is where the fold line is in the bottom, and the last one is going to be a mounting, and this one's going to be a mounting fold. Okay, so we'll add that to the template so that you've got a reference point. I'm going to leave that still, so if you do want to take a screenshot of that so that you've got it, I would recommend, if you're going to make any of the concept cards like this, it's worth making the template. Direct copy of the template, and then you've got that for future reference. You don't have to mess about with all the measurements, what did I do, and remembering how you did it. It's there ready for you to work with. So again, we'll pop that to one side and we're going to follow that plan. So the first one at the bottom here, I am just going to gently coax away from me to create that mounting fold. This one's already wanting to fold back on itself, so it's like a little concertina fold. We're actually going to bring that one up towards it, and then going to come to the next one, which is the middle, which is a mountain, and I'm just giving it a suggestion until we've got everything in place, and then the back one is a mountain. Okay, and then when we've got all these done, you should be able to then fold it all down into the right position here to make sure that everything's lined up, and press everything down nice and flat. And this is when you can come in with that burnishing tool and just pop everything in place, so all those folds can have a really nice crease, including that little one that's hiding on the inside there. Okay, so again, I'm just going to pop that on both sides, because the crisper those folds are, the better. The better the card will perform. So again, down that one on the top, and you've got there your stepper card. And like I said, once you've got the idea of this, it's not difficult to actually put this into a different format. You know, like I said, if you wanted a different proportion in your card. Okay, so on the template, I just wrote down the matte layers for this. So on the front, my outside mat here, which I've done in sort of a neutral tone, is 5.5 inches by 5.5. And then I've done the outside mats for these little edge pieces as well. Okay, so this one in the back here that's going to sit in here is 4 inches by 2. And all I've done is come down 1/4 of an inch. So this measured 2.25 inches. So these mats are going to be 2 inches wide. And then obviously whatever your height is, I've taken that 1/4 of an inch off again. So the little one at the front here, which is this one, is going to be the 2 inches wide by just 1.25 inch, 1/4 inch less than that 1.5 for that front panel. Now I've actually created my own background in here, so I didn't have a piece of pattern paper to work with. In the past, whatever I've put on the front here, I've added on the side. So all I did was go through my scrap bin and just pulled out some pinks to work with, and I actually created a couple of little panels here just by using up the scraps. So I'd got a long length of this sort of diamond in the background, I'd got some hearts, and then this is just a very fine strip of my gold matte cardstock, and you can see how those are going to fit in those spaces there. So that's going to be using these measurements for that outside mat. Whatever you do in the center there, if you're putting a full mat on, you can come down 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch again. It depends, you know, how you want to do it. If you don't have pattern paper and maybe you have something like washi tape, you could use that down the edge. Lots of different ways that you could actually embellish those side pieces. I just wanted something that tied in with what I was going to do. So we're going to pop those on and get those out of the way. And again, I've got that 4 by 2 dimension, and that one's going to slot in here with the gold on the outside. Make sure my hearts are the right way up. And then this little one is 2 inches across by 1.25, and we're going to pop that one on here. So we'll get those stuck down out of the way, and because I'm going on to that slightly shiny surface, I'm going to use my acrylic glue rather than the usual all-purpose glue. So we're going to pop a little bit on there and slide this one into that gap here, and there's just enough to leave a border all the way round there, like that. So that's that one stuck in. And then this one, we're going to miss the return. So if I fold it back again, this is going, you can decorate the inside if you want. I don't usually bother. I usually just put a piece on the front here. So again, I'm just going to add that same acrylic glue here and make sure that everything's going the right way. If you've got a paper that's got a direction on it, just make sure that you've got it the right way. So my hearts are actually the right way up here, and we'll pop that one on the front there. So that's that side done. And then if we come back to the main piece, just pop that back in there. I've actually got my mat layer at the ready. So I said that the original mat for the front wanted to be 5.5 inches square, which is what we've got here. And then I've just come down a little bit more to create a wider border. I've got sort of come down 3/8 of an inch to 5 1/8 for the gold layer here. Okay. So 5.5 around this edge and 5 1/8 for the gold. And then I used one of my square dies to cut out the center. This is probably my most precious cardstock. I've got lots of different cardstock, but I absolutely love this matte gold mirror card. It comes from the luxury cardstock pack that Crafters Companion make, and you get a glitter card, a shiny mirror card, and the matte or the satin mirror card. So because I like to utilize it, I've cut the center out because we're going to cover this. You know, the only bit that's peeking out is that little tiny 1/8 of an inch border here. Didn't need to waste it all, excuse me, underneath there. So that bit's going to go back in the scrap pack, used at a later date for another project, or to be die cut for whatever, a sentiment or, you know, something like that. So again, we will get this one stuck on here so that those can be drying while we do the detail work. So I'm going to stay with that acrylic glue, pop that on here, and then we'll pop that one on the front. And again, we've just got that nice border all the way around the edge there. And those can be drying while we work on that front panel now with all the decoration on. So I hope you like this idea. It was a little bit different. I'm usually a bit left field. I like to think outside the box and think about how, you know, you can utilise. Quite often my Halloween box has gone away for the rest of the year and I don't use it. But how can you bring it into your everyday crafting? You know, let's have a think about how you can utilise some of these products that we've got stashed away. So I'm going to put that to one side and let that dry now while we work on the rest of the card. So I'm just going to find a little space for that down there. And then the front here, I've actually created my own background using some of my inks. And then we've got the die cut pieces with the little moon over the top, the die cut gate, and just a few little bits of embellishments there. The little ghost is optional. He was part of my set and I just couldn't resist him. You know, you may not feel that that's suitable for a birthday card. It's entirely up to you, but I just like the idea. So just excuse me a second because I just need to give my nose a little bit of attention. And then I'll show you the pieces that we need next. So I've got a piece of smooth white cardstock, and this is 5 inches square. So this is the one that's going to sit now inside here and cover up the gap, so nobody would be any wiser. If I hadn't told you, you wouldn't know that there was a piece missing under there. This card's not thick enough that it creates any kind of problem, and we're going to have that large embellishment on the front anyway. So we're going to work on here. And all I've done is use one of my little die, my little circle dies, to cut out some sticky note because I wanted to create the moon in the background there. Now I ended up covering it up, so this bit's not actually necessary if you want to use a die cut. My original thinking with it was that I was actually going to leave a gap. So let's just bring in the craft mat to work on here. And then I'm going to bring in my oxide inks, and these are the ones that I've chosen. I'm going to do it slightly different today. On this one here, the whole of this sky was done with the 2 pinks. So I've got Kitsch Flamingo and Picked Raspberry. I'm going to bring a little bit more neutral into it today. I thought there was an awful lot of pink here, so I'm actually going to fade these down into pumice stone as well. And then I've just used a little bit of vintage photo at the bottom there to just take the stark white away from that bottom edge. And the vintage photo, I do often use the ink as opposed to the oxide. I'm not sure why, it just so happens like that. So we'll get that at the ready as well. And then I wanted to create, I don't have a mask for the clouds. It's something that I haven't acquired throughout my my time yet. So I thought, right, how can we create that? So what I do have is a little die set that I keep all these bits and pieces together that's got a die in to make the clouds. This is where the gate's from. I've used a little grassy edge, and I keep all these sort of like, they're almost like background things together. So all I did was take a piece of scrap card and I've cut both of these edges. It will have cut that way, won't it? You can see that one follows that line there, and this one follows the other line. So I've just cut it on either side. I only actually use one of the sides. You can see there how I've done it. So again, it's about improvising. You know, if you don't have something, what can you use instead? And this is going to feature heavily through this Halloween series because I don't have a massive stash of Halloween. I have got some, and I do want to start and increase it, but it was a case of having a look. What can you use? What can you make work? I've also chosen my little finger daubers for this because it's only a small area. You could use your blending brushes, you could use your applicators, whatever you're comfortable with. But I'm actually just going to use my little finger daubers here. And I'm going to start with the lightest one. No, I'm going to start, yeah, I'll start with the lightest one. Make a decision, Jan. So let me just grab my little ink tray there and let's get set up for this. So we're going to start with the Kitsch Flamingo, and all I'm going to do is use this edge to be the barrier for my cloud. So we can actually ink up my finger dauber, tend to work from here and just push that ink out I don't want to cover the whole space. I just want like a halo around the edge of that die cut cloud edge there. I want some white space leaving. I'm going to start off very light, and you can see the difference instantly. It doesn't look much when you're doing it, but when you move this, you can see that instant gratification with it. And then I'm just going to move it at another angle, you know, so just change it to a different angle. And again, I'm just going to do the same. And I'm going to keep doing this until I've got a skyline that I'm happy with. And you do see some of this, you know, either side of the little house there. Again, you can see there, so then we'll move it at a different angle. And I'm just going to keep doing that until we get down to the bottom. And I'm just going to use the lighter of the pinks on this part of the card. The picked raspberry comes in when we get the die cut house. I've used that on there as well. So again, just moving it around. You can use the other side, it's very similar. So I just stuck with that one part of it here. Again, just pushing it away as if you're sort of inking over the edge of that die cut shape there, so that you've got that little halo. And then I'm going to bring it about 2/3 of the way down, and then do the bottom is where it's going to be grounded for the fence and the bottom of the house. So rather than just leaving it blank, that's where I've brought that other colour in. Okay, now I'm going to change and do the very last bit with the pumice stone this time, so that it fades nicely into the vintage photo at the bottom there. So I'm just going to take my other finger dauber there, and I am going to flip this round now so that I don't contaminate the ink there. And we're just going to bring in last little bit, it's not a lot, and just neutralize it a little bit so that we've got a bit more of a neutral colour towards the bottom of the design there. And then I'm just going to extend that across this way, and then again, so you can move it along like so. And then we'll have one last one with the pumice stone, just so that there's a couple of layers. And you can see how that's created exactly the same effect that a stencil would have done had we had the stencil. That's going to be behind. I've got a little bit of a mismatch there, but that's going to be behind the house, so I'm not too worried about that. So we'll pop those to one side, and I'll keep the two pinks handy because we're going to use those in a second. Get rid of my clouds there, and this is what we've got so far. Okay, and then the idea is that when you take the mask away, you've still got your moon. But I wasn't happy with how that sort of ended up. It didn't look, you know, defined enough for what I wanted to do. So what I did was actually cut a small die cut circle. I'll just grab that out of here. So again, I've just taken a slightly smaller one. It's actually the same one that I used to cut the sticky notes here. And I've cut out a piece of cardstock, again, just scrap from what I cut off here. And I've inked this up with a little bit of the vintage photo around one side. And again, I have a die that creates a moon surface. So again, I've used the die as a stencil. This was too big for what I wanted to use on here. I just wanted a smaller version. So once I've cut this out and die cut it, I've just popped this over the top, and I've inked through it with that pumice stone again, just to add that little bit of definition for the moon surface there. And we're actually going to pop this in place, and I was a lot happier with how that looked when I'd got to that point. So we'll actually pop that in place now. We can put that on there. You could actually, you know, work on this area, but for my purpose it just wasn't quite defined enough for what I wanted in the background there. So that was the way that I sort of went about it. I'm going to bring the darker side of it that I've shaded to the bottom there, and we're just going to place that over the top and let that dry there. Okay, and we're just going to leave that to one side, and I think I am going to sneeze again. Deary me, I thought I'd got past this now with all the summer months, but it seems to go on for the whole year. Excuse me. So I'm just going to clear up that ink, And then I'm going to bring in the house now, which is going to be the main part of the design on here. So like I said, this was intended to be kind of a spooky house. You can imagine it cut in black with the yellow behind it, or if you're doing it in a design, you could put little lights behind it. So what I did was actually cut it from a piece of pattern paper. You know, you can use cardstock, you could use white card and colour the whole thing, but I thought, why not introduce a little bit of pattern? This one didn't have quite as, it is pattern paper, but it was more of a solid design. This one's got a little bit of definition on, which I quite like. And again, you can see that die has cut that out beautifully. And then I've taken my inks, and this is where the picked raspberry came in, because I've actually used the pink raspberry to darken all the rooftops there and a little bit along the bottom, just to give it some definition. So that's where that second colour came in with the pink. So let's move those out of the way now, because we've finished with those. And then I wanted to have some detail behind here as well. So rather than paper piecing all those little tiny pieces, you have choices there. First of all, I went with gold, and I put gold behind the windows, and I just cut little scraps that fit behind the windows, and I didn't like it. It was too much, sort of too much shiny, if there can be such a thing. I do love shine on my cards, but I just felt there was a little bit of overkill with the gold in all the windows. I wanted the gold to be an accent rather than a main part of the design. So what I did is actually cut it again in that neutral cardstock. This is the same card that we did the matte layers with. So again, it's bringing it and tying it in together. And what I did was actually make sure that I didn't apply as much pressure. So I changed the plates in my Gemini and made sure that I didn't apply as much pressure, because I wanted all these little pieces to stay in place. And then I've just put sticky tape on the back. So this is just ordinary sticky tape to hold those in place. And then this is going to do two things. It's going to act as stability, because this one is only pattern paper. And when we lay it over the top, you've instantly got all those little windows filled in there perfectly. So all I am going to do is take my acrylic glue, and we'll put it on this one because I can see where I'm going a little bit better, round the edges on the roofs there, avoiding the windows. I don't want to put glue over the windows there, so I'm just going to go round. Whoops, she says, catching that one. Just get that off there. I missed the little one. There's a little round one in the middle. There we go. So yeah, just make sure that you're not putting it over those little window panes, because those are the bits that we want to show through the pink pattern paper. So everything else is going to be stuck down, so that we've got a nice bond between the two layers. And like I say, this will stabilize it a little bit, give it a little bit more sort of rigidity, because it is only pattern paper. And then we can lay this one directly over the top, and because they've been die cut, you've got a perfect match there. And I tend to go down the center first with it, make sure that one's in the right place, and then the others should fall naturally in the right place there. Okay, and then I'm just going to use the block to give it a nice good press down to make sure that everything is secure and it's all flat. I've got a completely even flat surface there, and we've got that next embellishment to go there. So I'm going to bring in the vintage photo there, pop that to one side for a second, and I just want to add some of this now to take away again that sort of stark white. I just wanted to take a little bit of colour out of it to give it kind of a grounding. So again, I'm just very, very lightly, I don't want it to be too definite. You could do this with the pumice stone if you wanted, but I just wanted a little bit of definition between the ground and the sky. So that's all I want to do, just to give it some extra definition there. So pop those off to one side, and I think that's all my inking done now, so we can pop that one away. And I think we can remove the mat there as well now. So I've got my background and I've got my embellishment, which is going to sit here, and I've positioned it so that this overlaps where the moon is. Okay, so we can get this one stuck down now. It does actually just pop off the edge there, but I don't have a problem with that. It's just crept into that matted border, which I actually quite like. And, you know, I've purposely gone off the edge here with this one, just so that you've got that little bit of infringement into the borders to keep it, you know, as if it was intended that way. So what we will do is pop some glue on the back of here now, and that the acrylic glue will go straight over the tape. I've not had a problem with it. And again, we'll get this one stuck down. So I can go all the way over the back now, because this is all a solid piece. I don't have to worry about the windows this time. Get that glue on there. And then we can get this one stuck in place there. So once you've got the positioning, and I wanted this to be reasonably central with regards to the edges and the base. Okay, so I want a roughly about the same distance at the sides there. And again, that block comes in really handy when you've got a large surface area that you want to get completely flat. Okay, so this is all coming together nicely now. We've just got a few embellishments to add and we're almost good to go. So before I start adding the next pieces, shall we adhere here? No, I'll do a little bit more on top of here first. I'll show you what I've actually got ready to embellish with. So again, from that pack here, I have got the gate at the bottom here. So that's been cut using the little fence die here, and I'm going to cut into this because it's not long enough, and I didn't want to cut that. I didn't want to cover that much of the little castle up. I've also got some pieces that I cut from the grassy bit here. I've got a couple of bits of that left. I only need a tiny piece of that. I'm going to cut into it and add a little bit of ink on there. I've stamped out my birthday sentiment. I just wanted birthday wishes on there. And then again, I've been through the old stash because I felt I wanted some trees for it. I felt as if it needed something here to balance out what was going on this side, and I couldn't find a tree that was suitable. So I ended up with a little toadstool instead, which actually looked quite cute when it was finished. So I've got a couple of those, and I've just put some ink. I've used those same inks very, very lightly so that everything tones in. I've got the little ghosty to go on the front, and I have got some of those nice ivory glitter cardstock little bats there. You can see my dies left in the bottom of there. I've got the two little bats, two sizes of the bats. I've got a couple of spares which I can use on other projects, and that's what I've die cut out, all using scraps from the stash. So what I want to do with this one is I'm going to have it come in from the edge but stop. So I'm going to cut it. I'm just going to trim it about there, I think. And we're going to have this coming in from this side here. And then I'm going to do the same at this side. And that one can go from that edge. It doesn't have to be even. It's not important that it's even. It is just an added feature. Basically stops the house looking as if it's sort of floating around. And I'm just going to add again that I tend to call this the embellishment glue. It is an acrylic glue, but it's great for anything embellishment wise. I've got that precision tip on it, and again we're going to pop this in place almost down at the bottom, not quite, and get that one pressed in place. And all I've done with this is I've used that same ink and I've just inked up the bottom to create a gradient on there rather than it all being one colour. So I've stuck with the same inks all the way through so that you've got that continuity. And again, we'll just get some glue on that one. And this is going to sit from the edge this way, like so. Get that one pressed down. And just bring the wax paper in, the non-stick paper there, because it does help add pressure and it absorbs any kind of tacky glue that might be there. And then I say I wanted that bit's for the side, and one of those is for the side panel. And I'm going to bring this one in here like so. So I think what we'll do next is we'll get this adhered to the card panel now, because that's ready to receive that front panel now. So this one's going to go on here. And you can see now that even though that house does actually pop over the top, we're still within the parameters of the border. Because I'm sticking it to the gold satin mirror card, I'm going to stay with that acrylic glue there. The solvent-based glue can actually damage the coated cardstock. And then I'm going to put this in the middle there, just so that we've got a bit of bond in the middle. So yeah, that one's just going to, and there is a tiny, tiny little gold border. I just wanted a bit of it peeping out to add a contrast from that matte. If you don't want that second matte layer, you could just pop this straight onto the back one there. I'm just going to clean that little bit that's squidged out there while it's still wet. And we've got that in place there now. So now I can get the other pieces in place. So I'm going to pop the little toadstool on that one side. My apologies for sniffling today. I don't know whether I am starting with a cold or what is going on. I'm going to pop that one. And again, I'm going to come out of the edge of that frame on purpose. And then again, this looked as if it was floating around. I wasn't happy with it just sort of hanging there floating. So that's where the little grasses came in, just to sort of ground it on the base of the design there. So I'm just going to cut a small section off here, probably around about there. And then these all stay in the little scrap bin, so that I can use them on other projects if I need them. I am going to bring a little bit of that vintage photo ink back in here, again just to give it some dimension rather than it looking all one colour. But I'm just going to pop it on the bottom bit like that, so that there is like that two-tone effect. And then this bit is going to go right in the corner here. Take a little bit more off that edge. I don't need that piece on the edge there. And it's just going to ground the little mushroom there so that it doesn't look as if it's floating about. Now I chose not to put it at the other side because I've got things going on here, but if you wanted to add this to either side of the fence so that it was more symmetrical, you could. But I've just gone for it in this corner here because, as I say, I wanted to make sure that that didn't look as if it was just floating around there. So that's that corner finished. Then we're going to pop our bats on. So I've got the larger one, again same ink for all the embellishments, and he's going to be flying up here. And then I've got a couple of the little tiny ones, which again we're just going to pop one with that bigger one up here. And then I'm going to bring the other one over the other side so that we've got that sort of evening out on there again. So he needs a little tiny bit of glue, and he's going to be flying so that we can just see him over the edge of the moon there. So really sort of subtle colours. And then we've got the little tiny ghosty. And again, I tend, if I'm using the wet glue on these, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I do find that you get an impression from the glue. So like I put little dots all over there, I don't want those dots to show through, so I am just going to dab the bulk of it back off again so that I've got the adhesive, but it is actually flat. It's not going to show through that lovely shiny embellishment there. And then my birthday wishes I am going to bring over this side here. So again, we can pop some glue on that one. You can use your tape for these larger pieces if you wish, or your tape runners. And this one's going to stretch across both of those, so it sticks out slightly here and into this side, which was planned. And then I've got that one little mushroom again just to balance it. And then I was like, do I have it here? but I didn't want the symmetry, so we actually popped it in the back here. So it was a hint to the fact that there was one at one side, but I didn't want it to look too symmetrical. So yeah, I'm just going to tuck it in the back here and just overlap the sentiment just a little bit, like so. And then just as a final touch, I have got lots and lots of these. I picked them up in one of my local craft stores, and they're very inexpensive, and there are tons of them in here. So I'm actually just going to put, I only want 3 of them. I'm going to end up with more than that because they're all sticking to me. But yeah, they're going to last ages. They make great shaker components, and they also make good embellishments. So I'm going to bring one right up to the top to remove that kind of gothic-y effect. And then we're just going to add the theory of 3 and dot those around the card there. So I'm going to use my little pickup tool there. Oops, she says. And we want one up at the top of the roof. I want one on here. And then the other one's going to come slightly lower down onto that side just to bring it all in together. And I think as far as what I want to go today, that is pretty much it. The only thing, as always, I say this every time, those of you that follow me know me, that it's got to, I was like, just step away from it, Jan, you've got lots of shiny on there, but I had to put the bling. And these are a set of little Aurora gems that I've got, and I just thought they were great because they catch the light. And then I've used a tiny little neutral one for the door handle on the house, the castle, whatever you wanted to call it. And yeah, I went a little bit mad with the Aurora ones. So yeah, this was the finished design. I've got some on here, some up in the sky. I thought you can't have too much bling, in my opinion, for a pink gothic birthday card. So yeah, is it Halloween or is it a birthday one? Jury's out. Let me know what you think, whether you like this kind of idea. As I say, I often think outside the box, and again, as I say, it was about using things for different purposes, repurposing things to get more out of our stash. And then, as I say, I've just popped a nice piece. This is the 5.5-inch square, again the same as the matte layer, and I've just added, I've got the little bats left over, so why not pop them on the inside. So that's my stepper card today. It stands up nicely. The finished design measures 8 inches by 5 3/4, so it will fit in a standard A5 envelope, which is half of our A4 here in the UK. I think you have different names for them over in the US, but ours is an A5, which is literally a piece of A4 folded in half, and this will fit in there because we cut the width down, and because we've only got the 5 3/4 here, it should fit in there absolutely fine. So I hope you've enjoyed that one today, something a little bit different. There is more Halloween to come. I know a lot of you said that you're looking forward to seeing the Halloween designs, and I want to do a variety of Halloween. I want to go sort of with the, you know, we've touched on the pretty side. I want to do something with the children. I've got some construction projects planned. I'm going to bring tags in there. We're going to go sort of grungy on some of them. I've just bought some new products which I am absolutely in love with, and I'll introduce you to those in the next tutorial. So yeah, if you've enjoyed it, consider giving it a thumbs up for me, and I'll be back very, very soon with the next one in my Halloween series for this year. So enjoy the rest of your day now, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye now.